Audi is raising the pressure, having unveiled a concept for the 2026 single-seater. In today's video, we will look at Audi's strategy. It's more than just a simple entry in 2026. They are building a very strong project. We need to look at Hamilton's statements, Montoya's statements. There are differing opinions among various former drivers on the case regarding the incident involving Antonelli, Piastri and Leclerc. Finally, let's talk about Helmut Marko and the Red Bull title. To start, please give a supportive like, and now let's see everything in detail. The latest signal, the one that drove the paddock crazy, is the reveal of the R26. A concept that's more than a design exercise, offering the first look into the future Audi Formula 1 DNA. Mattia Binotto, now heading the Audi Formula 1 project, confirmed the news everyone awaited. The first fire-up of their single-seater is imminent. In other words, the engine is ready, the car is almost ready, and 2026 is no longer a distant number. The regulatory change in 2026 attracted Audi for a simple reason: a total reset. The single-seaters will be smaller, 30 kilos lighter, and will say goodbye to the traditional DRS. Active front and rear wings are coming, a new aerodynamic balance, and above all, a power unit where the electric part triples the power. And then there's the fuel. 100% biofuel, altering the engine's management and character. Audi aims to be more than a customer team or a half-hearted project. They're entering with their own chassis and engine, following a philosophy akin to Mercedes and Ferrari. For this reason, the reveal of the R26 was crucial. It was not just a livery, but a declaration of their identity. The message is clear. Gernot Dollner, CEO of Audi, has set the ultimate goal of competing for the World Championship by 2030. Binotto reiterates that 2026 will be the beginning, not the end of the preparation. And the vision is very much aligned with Binotto's philosophy: gradual growth, zero illusions, cultural and technical construction in the long term. This is one of the most striking projects in the entire sport, not just in motorsport, he said. Becoming champions is a journey made of mistakes, adjustments, and people. There's no magic, only transformation. And then the phrase that made waves, the first fire-up, will be the next big goal. It's not just an engine starting up, it's our ambition coming to life. Audi, unlike other new entrants in the past, is getting ahead of the game. The first single-seater will hit the track at the beginning of 2026, a shakedown that will be a milestone for the entire project. The transformation from Sauber to Audi is already underway. The year 2025 will be the last for the Sauber name in Formula 1, but in the meantime, the numbers are clear: 72 points in the championship, the best result since 2012. Behind this is the Binotto-Whitley duo. Binotto manages the technical vision, and Jonathan Whitley, a former key figure at Red Bull, has taken charge of the operational side. Whitley, in fact, described the philosophy as cultural building above all. No illusions, no shortcuts, mandatory resilience, and a team that looks forward every day. Champion teams don't come out of nowhere. They are born from people who believe in the same direction, he said. Audi does not want to end up like Toyota or Jaguar. It enters with a solid structure and a mindset already projected towards 2030. The lineup remains unchanged for the Sauber-Audi transition. The drivers, Nico Hülkenberg and Gabriel Bortoleto, will remain. A duo that makes fans dream and serves as an experienced and stable foundation to build the 2026 car and provide clear feedback. On one side, there's an experienced driver, and on the other, a young rookie. The real market kicks off from 2027, when Audi will aim to pursue a big name. Audi is entering Formula 1 at the perfect time because there is a regulatory reset, and they have set the goal of competing for the championship by 2030. If they maintain this course, Audi could truly be the next big shakeup in Formula 1. Not immediately, but we will see in the future. In fact, they are not aiming to win immediately, but the first 2 years will be used to transform the former Sauber into Audi and thus try to make the team resemble a real squad composed of new structures, new procedures, new engineers, and integration of chassis and power unit. Gernot Dollner has defined it as the challenger phase. Audi knows well that today they don't score points, but to become champions, they must first become reliable. So for 2026-2027, the goal is to understand the regulations and elevate the team's level. The second phase will begin in 2028 to 2029, when they will truly start competing with the competitors and the big players. In those years, the fruits of the current investments will come. Chassis developed in Inwil, Switzerland. Power unit developed in Newburgh, Germany. And there will be a new center in the UK and England to recruit specialized technicians. A Mercedes-style model, fully integrated and all in-house. And they have everything to... And there's Mattia Binotto in technical leadership, Jonathan Whitley in managerial management. They have technicians from ex-Red Bull, ex-McLaren and ex-Ferrari. Let's not forget the addition of Wolf Zimmermann. And also an external fund that finances the team. We are talking about the Qatar Investment Authority. In short, this is not a new team. It is an industrial giant that has acquired years of experience and has entered Formula 1, being accepted by the other teams because it is a well-structured project. And we arrive at the third phase from 2030. The goal is to compete for the world title. Either you win or you fail. Audi does not want to follow the path of Aston Martin. That is, to grow, reach the top, and then fall back. He wants to enter a winning cycle and stay there. And Binotto explained it well, saying that having control over the chassis and power unit is fundamental to winning. According to him, Ferrari and Mercedes are the only true rivals. Even Red Bull itself will now produce its own engines. All the other teams that rely on external engine suppliers will be at a disadvantage. I think, for example, of McLaren and also of Aston Martin, even though they rely on a giant like Mercedes. However, it would be strange if the same thing as 2022 happened, where McLaren as a customer team surpasses Mercedes itself, which produces the engines in-house, just because there is an advantage on the aerodynamic level. Audi wants to be independent because it believes it's a huge advantage, and Audi doesn't seem to be heading the way of Toyota or Honda. It seems to have a solid project in hand. That said, let's see how Ferrari is preparing for Las Vegas, because they will announce something special. In fact, Ferrari is preparing a surprise for Las Vegas. A teaser that appeared on social media has driven fans crazy. All special, new colors, graphics never seen before, and above all, a hint that many have interpreted as confirmation. There could potentially be a distinctive livery for the most showbiz-oriented Grand Prix of the entire year. The team's video does not reveal a great deal, but it certainly shows a sufficient amount. Lights, metallic reflections, chrome that evoke Vegas, and that atmosphere of excess that Ferrari wants to fully exploit. It's not the classic aesthetic teaser, it's pure marketing designed to launch a weekend aimed at brands and the global image of the team. Ferrari doesn't say anything openly, but the mere fact of hinting at new suits is a huge signal. Every time Maranello has done something like this, whether it's Monza, special anniversaries, or iconic celebrations, the suit has never come alone. Possible special livery. And since we're talking about Las Vegas, the most American stop on the calendar, the connection is evident. Create a complete visual package. Drivers dressed appropriately, dedicated merchandising, and a coordinated car. A déjà vu? Absolutely yes. In recent years, Ferrari has often played with this format, using matte colors at Monza, historical references in symbolic races, and limited editions for media events. Las Vegas is exactly the place where you can't show up looking ordinary. In recent days, a special cap has also appeared, different from the standard collection. New color details, a more aggressive design, an aesthetic that seems directly linked to the teaser of the suits. This confirms that Ferrari is preparing not only the race apparel, but an entire merchandise line dedicated to the GP. If they follow the pattern of previous years, this collection will only be available during the weekend and could become a limited edition drop. When is the announcement coming? There's no official date yet, but the teaser appeared at the perfect moment, and Ferrari, when it plays on hype and communication, follows a simple rule. Teaser, reveal suits, reveal livery, merchandise drop. We are waiting for the full announcement in the coming days. Las Vegas is the track of spectacle, LEDs, lights, and colors. Ferrari cannot show up with the usual pastel red. If they are indeed preparing a special livery coordinated with the suits, this could become one of the iconic moments of the season. And for the fans, it's also a response to this year's narrative. Fewer words, more image, more stage presence. Ferrari wants to shine in Las Vegas and not just on the track. From Ferrari, I expect a special livery in Las Vegas. Also because it will be a track where they will perform very well, where they aim to further strengthen their American fan base, and therefore they will try to go all out. The most important thing for me is track performance. Sure, a Ferrari that looks great is nice, but it must perform well. Las Vegas might be a favorable track, but watch out for the temperatures. Historically, we've seen a very strong Mercedes with low temperatures. On the contrary, it will be a track not too favorable for McLaren. That said, let's hear what Lewis Hamilton has said about this year. Lewis Hamilton elaborated on the concept of foundational elements, which is an essential terminology. Hamilton comprehends that in order to achieve victory in the year 2026, it necessitated an entire year to establish relationships, cultivate trust, and develop internal methodologies. He adds, I feel we're progressing, and I'm in a good spot for next year, which is all that matters. In short, 2025 was a transitional year, not about results. For the first time, Hamilton makes it clear that his transition to Ferrari was not just a matter of performance, but mainly about internal integration. I work in meetings, communication style, methodology, synergy with engineers. It's no coincidence I've often mentioned culture and foundations. When a driver of his caliber uses certain words, it means only one thing. He is building something for the long term. The message to the fans is implicit but strong. Have patience, it takes time. But we are building the foundation now. Meanwhile, Montoya has been outspoken about Leclerc. He went straight to the point, without filters. I don't understand why people thought Ferrari would be competitive. They've had an average car for years, nothing has changed. And then the phrase that set the paddock alight? If they are not competitive in 2026, how much longer do you think Leclerc will stay? And he says it with a brutality that hurts, but it explains a real concept. Leclerc joined Ferrari in 2019 and hasn't truly had a chance to fight for a world championship until the last race. He's been through good and bad cycles, but the constant remains. The potential has never turned into true title continuity, and at some point it's logical, right? A driver wants to win. Montoya openly says that in 2025, Leclerc practically carried Ferrari. The SFD5 was a car that didn't allow either him or Hamilton to go beyond what the vehicle offered. Charles has found more consistency. He has beaten Hamilton more often, precisely because, in Montoya's words, he is used to driving a mediocre car. It's a harsh jab, but it hits a true point. Leclerc knows the chronic limits of the Ferrari better and manages them better. This isn't criticism. Paradoxically, it's a compliment. He's become so skilled at compensating for design flaws that often the car seems better than it is. On paper, there shouldn't be any drama. Hamilton is secured until 2027, Leclerc until 2029, but as always in Formula 1, a contract is a promise with the side door always open. Montoya remembers it. Every agreement has exit clauses, and if in 2026 Ferrari does not present a car up to the new regulations, no one can guarantee that Leclerc will stay until 2029. And here lies the real internal tension for 2026, a year that decides the future of the drivers. Besides Leclerc's spot, which is at risk if Ferrari underperforms soon, there's also uncertainty about Oliver Burman. He finished 4th in Mexico, 5th in Brazil, and as a young rookie, he's already showing a lot on the track. Because as of today, Burman is no longer just a prospect of the Ferrari Driver Academy. He is potentially a driver ready to debut in a top team. We saw this with Kimi Antonelli, who took half a season to adapt to Mercedes and managed to hold his own against George Russell. So in my opinion, even Oliver Burman, by doing a full season, would be able to drive the Ferrari almost to the limit. The comparison with Ocon is currently harsh on the Frenchman because Burman is beating him in everything: pace, consistency, and qualifying. And even Steiner, the former team principal of AS, articulated it clearly. If Ferrari does not provide Burman with a seat by the year 2027, Burman will seek another top team. And this is indeed correct. So be cautious, as we might witness an unforeseen twist soon. If Leclerc chooses to depart earlier, utilizing an exit clause, we could potentially see Burman in a Ferrari. The identical situation could potentially occur with Hamilton. Should neither of them decide to depart from the team, Burman may consider seeking another leading team elsewhere, carefully evaluating the implications of this new regulation and observing which team successfully adapts more effectively to the updated rules. We need to revisit the Piastri incident in Brazil because Montoya is defending the Australian driver. The two-time Indy 500 winner had no doubts after watching the replay. As soon as I saw the incident, I understood that Piastri would receive a penalty, not because he made a mistake, but because those are the rules, even if they are not fair. Montoya highlights a key point. Piastri did not go wide, he did not miss the apex, and he did not make a desperate braking maneuver. The only thing he did was try to brake more to avoid the collisions. That lockup, according to the regulations, is interpreted as a loss of control, and that's where the penalty comes from. According to Montoya, it's a total absurdity. According to Montoya, Oscar Piastri paid the price precisely because he tried to avoid contact. He tried to get out of the way, says the Colombian, and this cost him 10 seconds. And here's the most absurd part of the whole story. Montoya explains that if Piastri had done the opposite, released the brakes and launched into Verstappen, he would have brought his wheel up to the level of Antonelli's mirror. According to the federation's guidelines, in that case, he would have had the right to the racing line. In other words, if you brake more to avoid contact or penalties, and if you brake less and take more risks by going wide, you are within the regulations because you are alongside the other car. It is the total paradox of the federation, rewarding risk and punishing caution. Montoya says bluntly, it's absurd that you find yourself in a better position to defend if you are more aggressive, and he concludes with a perfect reading of the dynamics. Antonelli had nothing to lose, Piastri did, and that's exactly what led him to brake more and harm himself in the process. Even Julian Palmer, a former Formula 1 driver, shares Montoya's opinion. He says it's just a racing incident. The dynamics are clear, 3 drivers side by side, a tight corner, a moment where everyone is beyond the limit, and the worst consequences are for Leclerc, who gets eliminated a few meters later. But the essence doesn't change. Piastri doesn't deserve the penalty. That's what Palmer says, who argues that Piastri had space to attempt the overtake, but precisely because he was aware of the situation, he decided to brake earlier to avoid making a dive bomb like Verstappen. In short, both Palmer and Montoya think the same way, and I agree with them. According to the current rules, it's right to penalize Piastri, but at the same time, it's true that if he had made a move like Verstappen, releasing the brakes, going wide, and therefore risking more contact but being ahead of the car alongside, then in that case, he wouldn't have been sanctioned. In short, the rules are applied too rigidly according to the former drivers, and the real problem is not the penalty but the regulations, because this removes the margin for real racing on the track. We must conclude by talking about Red Bull, the budget cap, the extra engine used by Verstappen, and also the possibility of fighting for the championship until the end. Without a retirement from Norris, we can't make it. These are the statements from Helmut Marko, who said that the championship is practically gone. In the last 2 races, Norris did what was needed to kill any hope, scoring 58 points out of 58. He was perfect in Mexico, in Brazil, and perfect in the sprint race at Interlagos. Verstappen, on the other hand, has secured 2 third places, which in another season would be gold, but not when he's chasing a McLaren in this kind of form. The gap is now 49 points, and Helmut Marko has said that making up 49 points in 3 races and a sprint is practically impossible if Norris doesn't have a 1-0. According to Helmut Marko, Red Bull lost the title after Imola. Certainly in Spain, Verstappen lost his patience and was too aggressive, but looking ahead, the favorable tracks are Las Vegas for Red Bull, and Qatar and Abu Dhabi are more favorable to McLaren, so objectively the championship is in the hands of Lando Norris and also Oscar Piastri if we want. But pay attention to the issue of the extra power unit used by Verstappen, because according to Andrea Stella, it must be included in the budget cap, and Samdo was used for performance reasons and not because the engine is at the end of its life. So does the engine fall within the budget cap? In my opinion, Karen, yes, because a complete power unit costs between 1 and 1.5 million euros, the equivalent of 2 aerodynamic upgrade packages. The scope of the issue is quite significant. The phrase sparking suspicion comes from Laurent Mekier, Red Bull's team principal, who mentioned it's always good to install a new power unit. The plan was to finish the year with those already in use, but we took the opportunity because we wanted to work on the setup. No reference to technical problems, no statement on damage or failures. So in this case, the cost must be included in the budget cap, and the situation is much more serious than it seems, because this case doesn't just concern Red Bull, it concerns a dangerous precedent. Because if a team can change the engine without a penalty hiding behind a start from the pit lane, then the rules need to be reviewed. In fact, McLaren is not accusing Red Bull of unfairness, but wants to clarify the principle. If an engine is not damaged, it ought to be paid for. Share your opinions in the comments regarding the subjects we discussed. As always, remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you will not miss any videos on the channel. That's it for now. See you in the next video.